Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we are going through points projection modelling. So what is points projection modelling? It's pretty much you predict all the results for the game week in front of you, which sounds easy but is no easy feat for any of you out there that are gambling men or women. If you tried and picked a precise result on any betting site, they're usually the hardest bets to pull in. However, it does allow you to objectively look at a game and figure out what's a likely outcome and where the points may float within the various FPL players that you may be considering. So with that being said, if you do like this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to more content coming your way. Now for those of you that do not have the visuals, I will read them out for you with a brief description as to why I believe in each of the results that I have put down and any caveats that come along with them. Some of these teams I haven't actually seen in pre-season yet, as I've been focusing mostly on watching the full 90 from the top 7 or 8 sides from last year's Premier League. So, game week 1, Crystal Palace vs Arsenal, first game up. I've got Arsenal down as 1-0 victors in this match. I do not see Vieira shipping a whole ton of goals at home in the first game of the season. However, I do see Arsenal continuing their pre-season form in their relentless attack, and they should nab a goal at some point throughout that game. If they do not score by the 60-minute mark, though, you may see Crystal Palace then start to open up and try and nab a 1-0 victory at the end of the game when legs are getting a little bit more tired. Crystal Palace a pretty good defensive unit, so if you have a look at last year's XG conceded stats for the last part of the season, you'll see they were doing quite well in shutting up shop in front of any of their opponents. Second game for game week 1 is Fulham hosting Liverpool. I've got Liverpool down here as a 3-0 victor over Fulham. I haven't watched any of Fulham's pre-season games yet. However, the things that I am hearing is they are playing quite expansive football, quite an open game. If they do try to do this against Liverpool, they will not have the quality to keep up with Liverpool, and Liverpool will absolutely decimate them. 3-0 might actually be a little bit late if Fulham do choose to play that way game week 1. However, I would suspect, having watched that Community Shield match, that Fulham would be a little bit more sensible and probably try to limit the onslaught, and will probably keep Liverpool down to maybe 2 or 3 goals. Could be quite a lot more. This is why Salah's such an outstanding captain for game week 1. Moving across to Sunday's fixtures, Sunday in New Zealand time, for those of you who are overseas, obviously we're about 12 to 13 hours behind, so keep that in mind. Bournemouth versus Aston Villa. Straight up, haven't watched any of Bournemouth pre-season. I have no interest in any of their assets, and I am hearing that they are dealing with quite a few injuries pre-season. So, unlikely for them to be able to score any goals. The only match I've seen of Aston Villa pre-season was the 90 minutes they played against Man United in Australia. I believe it was in Melbourne on a horrific pitch where most of the players looked like they were skating on ice and spending half the time on the floor. You can't really gain too much out of the skill level or sharpness of any players in conditions like that, and so I mean, this is a hard picture to guess a result on, but we would say that Aston Villa's probably got the experience in the Premier League to deal with a depleted Bournemouth side. Leeds vs Wolves. I have also not watched any minutes from Leeds pre-season. They have lost Rafinha to Barcelona, and Bamford is still... Well, he had a pretty big injury last season, didn't get many minutes under his belt, and it looks like, well, I'm hearing that, sorry, not looks like, I haven't seen, but it is sounding like he's still trying to find his feet, and so without the likes of Bamford or Rafinha as their two out-and-out attackers, I don't quite see where the goals are coming from Leeds, especially with Wolves being quite a defensive outfit. On the Wolves front, I have heard that Jimenez is potentially injured, and Podence may be playing up front. For any of you who are looking for a 5.5 million option in midfield that'll be playing out of position and don't want to go for Neto, there is an option there. However, his time in that position is probably limited to however long Jimenez is out for, if that is in fact the case. I have not sat down to actually watch their matches. So yeah, maybe go if you are considering any of their players that aren't Neto. And the one thing I do know about Neto is he has been playing very far forward, almost as a front two, and so for 5.5 out of position midfielder, it's kind of a no-brainer to chuck him in at the start of pretty good fixture run for Wolves on the outset. Next game, Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest. Newcastle have strengthened across the transfer window. They brought in Nick Pope in goal, which will definitely shore up their defence a lot more. Nick Pope is an outstanding keeper. What I am hearing from Nottingham Forest, having not watched any of their pre-season minutes either, is that they have done a lot of transfers and brought in a whole bunch of new players, which is great for them, but also it will unsettle the squad. Players will be playing around other players within their teams that they are unfamiliar with, and so it may take a fair few games for them to get up to speed with A, their new team, and B, the Premier League, which is considerably more difficult than the Championship. I don't know where the goals are going to come from Newcastle. I think they've still got Chris Wood and they got Joelinton still up front. What have they done there? Let's have a quick look. Newcastle have chucked. Okay, they got Wood and Wilson up front. Okay, Wilson can score some goals. So that makes him move back to midfield with Joelinton, which is good. But yeah, most of their shoring up for the Newcastle team so far has happened in defence. You've got the likes of Pope coming in. Trippier was bought last season, but spent a lot of the time on the sidelines through injury. I've brought in this new guy called Botman, who I'm hearing bits about, but I don't know much about him at all. So Newcastle probably more defensive, I would suspect, moving forward this year, as opposed to any sort of prolific goal-scoring outfit. Maybe they catch Nottingham Forest off guard with their brand new team and grab 2 goals. Who knows? I would not be investing too heavily in either of these teams until you actually see how they line up in formations and actually how they press as a team. And yeah, I'd probably just skip these two for a fair while yet. Spurs versus Southampton. Mourinho and Roma just showed the whole Premier League exactly how to combat Spurs, and it's simple. Mark, Son and Kane out of the game, and they have basically nothing going forward. Time and time again, you saw last season, Kane coming off the front line, dropping into midfield, picking up the ball, swivelling, having a look, seeing Son far post, hitting an amazing ball, and Son running on to goal and scoring. This is why Kane was always assisting Son, or Son was always assisting Kane, and they tore teams to pieces. However, it was a very simple attack. It's amazing that not many managers actually saw that and just went, hey, well, all we have to do is take these 2 players out of the game, and what else have they got? Which is exactly what Mourinho did. It worked a treat. Kulusevski was running around. He had a couple of he didn't do a hell of a lot, let's be honest. There was no piercing, darting runs that, just looked like he was... All he needed to be done was given the ball. He didn't look like he was sending any deliveries in that were barely missing players or anything. He just looked like he was working hard, but not really having a hell of a lot of effect on the attacking output of the game. And so, assuming that Hasenhüttl does sit down and watch that match against Roma, which I'm pretty sure he will, all he should be doing is just focusing on taking out Kane and Son and just seeing what the West Spurs do, and I don't see them really breaking down a low block too hard if their main two men are actually marked out of the game. But who knows, Hasenhüttl may have completely different ideas about how he's going to line up against Spurs. I still think Spurs will nab the victory there, so I've got them down as a 1-0 victor over Southampton. Everton versus Chelsea. Everton have been woeful in defence for a while now. They were terrible last season. They've had a pretty higgledy-piggledy pre-season as well. They are not looking at all on the game, or like they've got any sort of awareness of the players and where they need to be in specific scenarios within the game, and what, where they should be standing even on the pitch. So any half-decent team, of which Chelsea is well more than a half-decent team, should just look at their positional awareness and go, here are the holes in the team, this is what we're going to do, we're going to exploit these spots here and just run around them, and probably have, 65% possession, 20 odd shots or something, to Everton's 30% possession, maybe 5 shots, and Chelsea probably get home 2 goals. There or thereabouts. Chelsea have no striker, out and out striker, which is why I don't see them scoring a hell of a lot at the start of the season until they get used to this new. It's a weird formation they're playing. It's like kind of like a 4-2-3-1 in defense, and then when they do have the ball, Sterling playing on left wing, then darts into the centre of the pitch and starts playing as a false 9 with whoever's playing in left back behind him coming up and filling in his slot, which will work quite well if Havertz drops in and helps out Sterling. But neither of the two are out-and-out strikers. I don't know if they know particularly how to hold the ball up and feed in the players around them, so I suspect that it's probably going to take them a little while to start to link that together, if that is their only and main plan of attacking. I hope it's not, because if that's all they've got, they will struggle against a few teams this year, I think. So 2-0 against Everton, simply because Everton just will not be able to deal with whatever Chelsea chucks at them, even without a striker. So that's how lowly I'm ranking Everton. In fact, they will probably be fighting for relegation this year, and is definitely a team that I am targeting pre-season. Leicester vs Brentford. I just watched the full 90 minutes at the King Power Stadium. Leicester are looking pretty organised in formation. Everyone seems to know where they're meant to be as the players moving around. Players are moving. There's no holes as the ball's being passed. Everyone's moving around, marking up their players effectively. It looks like Brendan Rodgers has drilled into them. Well, awareness on the pitch would be the main thing that I'm seeing, and the press was pretty good. Jamie Vardy was obviously getting a little bit older now and not doing as much pressing as he has in the past, but as a whole unit moving in behind him, I think Brendan Rodgers is aware that he can't just run around chasing down all the strikers all the time without help from behind, and Vardy will still go up there and do that. So Brentford aren't a pushover. They do have a pretty sound, well, not sound, but pretty low XG conceded figures from last year. Raya, pretty decent goalie as well, and is really good at coming off his line to cut out any crosses coming into the box, which is why I've actually currently got him in my team to lap up those bonus points for recoveries. But I do suspect that Leicester will get one up on them here. 1-0, maybe 2-0 Leicester. Man United, my team versus Brighton. The last game that I watched of Man United, we looked a lot better in terms of positional awareness across the pitch. We had to do less defending because of this fix that Ten Hag's put in, where we are actually picking up players off the ball, which shuts down attacks that our defence need to deal with more often. So Maguire's a bit of a bugbear for me. He's got some all right skills, but his footballing IQ is not great. He's constantly being caught out of position last year, and even in pre-season games this year, right up until that last match where he actually potentially has just been sat down in front of all the preseason matches and gone, why'd you do this? Don't do that. Why'd you do this? Don't do that. He looked a lot better in that last match where he was actually helping out the team a lot more and actually not going into stupid positions and tidying up a little bit more cleanly in the backline, which means he is less susceptible to being played around. However, we still don't have a solid CDM. Maguire is still very exploitable. I'm not entirely sure who's going to be playing next to him in the centre pairing. Just stay away from Man United's defence for the first 4, 5, 6 game weeks until we get used to whatever. However our defensive shape lines up. Brighton, excuse me, I have not seen too much of them pre-season. Last year they were a pretty sound defensive unit. Their defensive numbers are always pretty solid. However, they were always susceptible to what seemed to be just a couple of basic mistakes in their defensive third, which cost them at least a goal a game last year, which is why they didn't end up with as many clean sheets as they should have. If they can get that out of their game and just tidy up those little mistakes, they will be a very good defensive unit this year. However, they have lost Yves Bissouma to Spurs, which is a very key position for any defending team. And Bissouma's a great player. He'll be massively lost. And so I suspect Brighton, as they get used to their new defensive lineup, Cucurella's also been linked with Man City, which will not be helping Brighton even bed down their defensive lineup. You know, if you've got players that are touted to be going elsewhere, or their mind's really on the pitch, how about the other players that are playing next to them? It's all a bit up in the air. So 2-1 United, maybe 3-1 United, could even be 2-2. United are going to concede goals this year, but they are also going to score a lot of goals because our attack does look quite fluid. We've got Fred coming in, making darting runs to the byline and cutting the ball back, which we haven't seen him do very much of at all. So we've even added our defensive midfielder into our attack, giving us more of an overload in the box, which should just equal more goals scored. And the final game of the game week is West Ham versus Man City. Now, West Ham's actually a team I haven't looked at closely, and I want to look at closely because they are going a little bit under the radar simply because of this game first up against Man City. I have spoken to a couple of West Ham supporters who are still backing the Hammers. So much so that one of them's even putting Jared Bowen into their team game week 1, which, hey, he's a great player, but I would say maybe wait till game week 2 on that one. I won't shout you out. We'll keep it. We'll keep the private FPL chats just to the private stuff. Man City, well, they are going to score goals. They're looking awesome. In the Community Shield match, the one thing that I did pick up is Haaland is not up to speed. Not only is he not up to speed, his press is not. His press is not there. He is not doing the pressing that Pep wants him to do, which is why Pep looks like he's told De Bruyne to actually go up and help Haaland do the press. You saw this a lot during in the Community Shield match, which is great for the likes of De Bruyne and Haaland against any weaker opposition, because they will win the ball high up the pitch and have an overload right in front of goal. And the clinicality of Kevin De Bruyne and Haaland, they will put goals away. However, for the top half of the teams, I don't know how well this is going to work if Haaland A, doesn't have the legs to do the press for the full 90, and B, also doesn't quite have the awareness of how to do it. I don't know if he was asked to do that a hell of a lot last season, but Pep definitely plays quite a different style of football to most managers, and in that style of football you have a lot of variation, interchanging of positions, overlaps, overloads, movement all over the pitch, and it's a lot to learn, and it's a lot to learn quickly. And although Haaland is an outstanding player, Man City haven't had a hell of a lot of pre-season and do look a little bit slower, or did look a lot slower than Liverpool, or a lot less drilled. And so Haaland, you may see him doing a lot more pressing early season, which may instigate substitutions early on because he's not quite up to fitness yet. And so definitely something to keep an eye on. The Man City boys are also obviously not used to Haaland and how he likes to play the game, the runs that he makes. He's obviously still fitting into the Pep system, and that cohesive unit, or the understanding of where players are going to make their runs and whatnot, just simply isn't there yet. So something I would probably... This is why I'm starting without Haaland in game week 1. So there's the results. Now what do we do with results? You have a look at your team and go, right, how are these results, assuming that they're relatively accurate, going to affect my team? Now if we jump through, I've got 2 Arsenal players to start with, Zinchenko and Martinelli, and I am currently skipping Jesus. The reason for this is Crystal Palace and Leicester are not two great games to start the season with for Arsenal. They're actually 2 very tricky fixtures. I've predicted 1-0 for Arsenal, and so tripling up on Arsenal doesn't seem very viable. Where's the goal going to come from? Most likely will either be Jesus, Saka or Martinelli, with one of those 3 probably assisting the goal, or maybe an assist from Zinchenko. They don't seem to do a hell of a lot of attacking down the right. Most of the attack seems to be coming down the left, and Zinchenko has been getting quite far forward. And so if we do win 1-0, we might get the clean sheet from Zinchenko, and hopefully Martinelli in my team is the one that either assists or scores the goal. A little bit of a risk, but if it was like maybe a 3-0 victory I was seeing, I would probably more heavily consider Jesus as my solo striker. Liverpool 3-0 over Fulham. This is why I've tripled up on Liverpool in the first game of the season, and why I'll be captaining Salah. The 3 goals should come from Salah and Diaz mostly. Maybe Firmino's playing up front, but he is not known as a goal scorer, and so these goals should largely come from, hopefully, the 3 players I've got on the pitch. Then we'll move down to Spurs 1-0. This is why I have no Spurs players in my team from the outset. They also play Chelsea game week 2, and I do not like having James in my squad going away to play any of the Spurs boys anyway, but also Spurs in reverse. That would be 2 players in the second game, which would not bode so well for game week 2 points, and so I'm just skipping Spurs altogether until game week 3. Chelsea 2-0. This kind of validates James. James at right back. Hopefully he's playing right back and he's not playing right centre back. If he is playing right wing back, you will see a lot of deliveries from James into the box, and potentially quite a lot of shots, because they do not have an out and out striker, and so you may not see as many balls being delivered in the air into the box, but a lot more getting to the byline and a 45-degree angle cut back across to the penalty spot, or drilled in across the 6-yard box will be your most likely balls of delivery going in for Chelsea. You're not going to have Sterling getting up for a header and beating 2 centre-backs, so why bother putting the ball in the air, right? We then go down to Man United, 2-1 against Brighton. This is why I've got Martial in my team. I do see a lot of goals coming for United, and Martial has been in form pre-season. However, Ronaldo is still sitting in the wings. He did start in the final game that Man United played, where they did kind of put out their B string unit with Ronaldo and Eriksen starting in that game, but most of the other players that have been playing most of the minutes pre-season had all played the day previous and were all resting. So I would suspect that Eriksen and Ronaldo will be on the bench for game week 1 and probably both get onto the pitch around the 60-65 minute mark. Hopefully by that time Martial's already done the business and comes off 60-65 minutes with a goal or an assist or one of each, and happy days, right? And then Man City v West Ham, I've got down as the 2-0. Cancelo sitting in the back line, hopefully with a clean sheet. Where are the goals going to come from in the City fixture? Most likely Haaland, De Bruyne, or Mahrez, really. I do not see Grealish scoring a hell of a lot of goals. He has been given a bit more freedom to come in off the wing and actually run at defenders and cut across the box, and we did see a couple of shots from him pre-season doing so. However, these shots are all coming from less than prolific goal scoring situations. So he's shooting from quite often from outside the box, or if he is in the box, it's from a tight angle. So I would suspect that De Bruyne playing in a number 10 behind Haaland, and Haaland are probably going to mop up most of the points, with Mahrez, just if he's playing, he will score an assist just by virtue of the fact that he's greedy and runs at players. He'll get taken down in the box, he'll get fantasy assists for penalties and all sorts. And there you have it. That's kind of how, well, that's what I do pre-season, pre-game week, each game week, to try and just bring myself back down to earth, knowing that there's not going to be 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 games each and every week, to actually have a look at how my team is going to do. So, aiming for 60 odd points, give or take. All 4 of my defenders I've actually got down for a clean sheet this game week. Raya, not so much, probably going to concede. Would assume that Salah, De Bruyne and Diaz are going to get into the points in midfield, with hopefully Martial, Neto and Martinelli maybe chipping in on the outset. You want to aim for about 60 points per week. That's pretty rough estimate. This team right here should do that. With Dunk on the bench, coming in for anyone who doesn't show up in my squad. Now, the only players in the squad that are likely not to start, or potentially have some questions over whether or not their minutes are going to be, well, if they've got competition for their spot. Plange on the bench, probably won't get on. Archer for Aston Villa probably also won't get on. So although I have quite a flexible formation on the pitch, I have very inflexible bench. So do not go into a game week 1 with 2 dead bench spot members without knowing exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. Raya has questions over his spot because Brentford have bought another keeper in Stravinovski, if I've pronounced that right. May have completely butchered that. Apologies if I have. So definitely something to keep an eye on. However, he has started every single match pre-season and played the full 90 in their last pre-season match, so I'm a little bit more secure there. Zinchenko has just moved across to Arsenal as he wants to have a shot at playing somewhere in midfield. However, he's a great left back player anyway. So I suspect he will start the season at left back and do his very best to play his way into the midfield. Now, I am comfortable in starting Zinchenko for a couple of reasons. He has got enough preseason minutes under his belt to look like he is going to start game week 1. But also, I just watched the Pep Guardiola unscripted interview that basically went through Man City's season last season, and there was a small part on Zinchenko and some of the players that had left Man City, and Pep's words towards Zinchenko were that he is an absolute workhorse. He gets his head down, does what the manager says, spends extra time training when training sessions are finished. He turns up early. He's doing extra fitness sessions, the whole 9 yards. So he is working hard and will work hard for Arteta. He wants to play in that midfield spot. He's going to try and make it his own, and he will be doing everything in his power to do so. I think that will basically guarantee his spot in the Arsenal starting lineup because he's quality and he's working hard. That's exactly what managers want. Martinelli has a few question marks over his minutes, with Emile Smith-Rowe and potentially even Nketiah vying for his position out on the wing. So we probably keep an eye on that. And the final spot being Martial up front. Obviously, very, very contentious. Ronaldo, if he stays with United, will probably be our starting man up front, given that he can do the pressing that Ten Hag is asking him to do, and that is the one thing that I have not seen pre-season. Ronaldo did not travel with the squad, and so we haven't seen him fit into this Ten Hag press. I know Ronaldo is fit and he works just as hard, but he is aging, and I don't know if he's going to be able to run around like a crazy man for 90 minutes, chasing down every no-hope ball in across the defensive backline in order for them to play out a long ball and for United to pick up the scraps. I don't see that happening a hell of a lot, and definitely something to keep an eye on at least. I would say Martial will start the first game of the season, but probably get pulled off about 60 to 65 minutes. This team does have 1 million sitting in the bank. That 1 million is touted potentially for Jesus in case I get some ideas that Martial may not start. Or I may just hold on to it so that we can play around with any price rises that come about in the first few days of the season. So that's points projection modelling. Bit of a longer one. I was trying to get through that as fast as I could, but turns out it ended up being 32 minutes. So we will just cut it off there. If you did get it to the end of the video, that in itself should earn me a like. And if it's the second video you've watched, go on, mate. Click that subscribe button so that you can come back for your third or more. And until next time, I'll catch you again sometime soon. Cheers.